Jack, you're on. Share with us your fondest memories from the beginning.
Lois asked me to share sort of the history of my experience of how the Sahavas got started. I owe it all to Marie Rose. She had invited me in 1975 to give a series of talks near where she lived. And one of the talks was to a group of followers of Yogananda, who I informed them that they've been waiting for God to come in human form, and here he is, MeherBaba. But that's not the point of what I'm saying. It's another story. And I was amazed at how they lived about, maybe 10, 15 miles from the city, yet they had their own little place. And then I came back to one of Phyllis's meetings, and Steve Edelman had just come back from Myrtle Beach. And he was describing how wonderful it was at the center. And then I thought of this place in Northern California and said, we could create the same atmosphere for Baba. All we have to do is get ourselves secluded away for a few days. So I invited John Connor to come with me and start looking for campgrounds. To just do this. It was just basically John and I, nobody else. And so we looked around, finally found a place that I think they were going to charge us $8 for 2 nights, Friday and Saturday night. We supply our own food today and everything like that. And then that fell apart. It was very disappointing. And we're all getting kind of excited about that, and then suddenly it fell apart. And somebody came up with another place. And I found out that it was going to cost $18 for 3 days. And I thought, that's too much. Nobody would pay $18. And, I remember I asked Patty Thorne at Philip's house, do you think people can actually pay $18 for, 3 days? Almost double the budget we had before. And she said, yes, they would. And so we decided, then Chris Pearson got involved. And we started to put this whole thing together, basically, Chris and John and myself. And then we brought it up before the center, Baba Center. And they were talking whether or not they wanted to do it or not. I said, it's not whether or not it's going to happen. If you want to get involved, you're invited to get involved and take it over and set a project. But if you don't do it, we're going to do it anyway. So they decided to do it. Very simple. And then we invited Henry Kashouty, who was our first guest. And to keep the budget really tight, we figured out how many people would come. And we said to Henry, this is all we can contribute. So Henry paid about half the fare or even more, because we ended up charging $24, an extra $6 to cover the fare. And I thought, will people come? Is that too expensive? I don't know. But sure enough, it happened. This is my experience. Other people may have other experiences. But what's very interesting is that there was a group in Massachusetts that decided to have simultaneously, or a few weeks later, a month later, their own kind of spontaneous gathering. So I don't take credit for it. It was in the air. Baba wanted it to happen, and I just happened to pick up on it, and these other people did it, and pretty soon we started having Sahavas yearly, and everybody else started having them. And in conclusion, people are asking me, what was that first one like? Well, it was kind of like this. Okay? It was one of those, lippity-doo-da, lippity-yay, my oh, hey. Many a sunshine headed our way. Lippity-doo-da, lippity-yay, there, Baba in our heart. It's natural, everything is satisfactory. Lippity-doo-da, lippity-yay, wonderful feeling, wonderful day. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Donald will dance now.
That would be memorable. Wait, I think this was the first Sahavas that I was invited to, and the last. That's when I told Lois, where were we? In Southeast 2 years ago. And I said, I've been invited a couple of times to speak at different Sahavas, but nobody ever asked me back. I think that's the inspiration for this thing. And I think the reason I wasn't asked back was my only Sahavas memory. Well, I have 2 Sahavas memories. One is that I was with Billy Eaton. We were the two things that we fought the whole time. If it happened on Saturday, she said it was on Sunday, and if I said it was on Friday, no, and if it was slack. And we just didn't do that, wasn't good. And the other thing was, I think, what finished me off in the eyes of the Southwestern Bible lovers was when we had one of these panel discussions, I think on the last day, and they were asking questions, and somebody said, what's the meaning of the duty? And I volunteered that the duty unto others as you duty unto me. To you. And so I've never been asked back to it. I don't know. What else can I say? Should I tell about the compromising things I've found involving you? No, I have let's say I don't have any memory at all. No, I do remember. No, it was a wonderful time. And I do want to say one thing. The best thing by far for me was the Leatrice. Was it called that then? But it was like a panel, and then they all sat, and they were like so unbelievable.
And they're all 30 now.
Well, I know. I was. Never mind. I'm hoping to come around again someday as a Leatrice.
Yeah.
But the way my waistline's going, I don't think so. Okay, I'm going to pass the torch on to you.
Hi. I have plenty of memories, and
some people here who are new, and so would you like me to introduce you? This is Jane Brown. She sings. Okay.
Queen. I sing now and then. I think I've been here 4 times. Don't get mad. Other musicians. But there were reasons why we were invited, Bob and myself. The first time I think we kind of called Adele a lot and said, is there any way we could possibly be invited to be on the Sahavas? We did this for 4 years in a row, and finally the board decided to go along with it. And then the next time I came back was when Bob was just about half in his body and half out, and I said, come on, we just gotta go anyway. And the poor guy could hardly sing. And we got here and thought, well, what if we can't do anything? So Meheru had to be there that year, and we went to Meheru and said, Meheru, what are we going to do? We're like totally packing. We were literally in our beds the entire Sahavas, except for our 2-hour concert. So we're in there with our covers up to our necks like this. And we had friends visiting, and Meheru said, look, just do one thing. Just pretend you're going to sing one song. And tell everybody at the Sahavas that you can sing one song. And so we came and we said, okay, we have one song for you, and maybe 2, and maybe 30. But so nobody expected anything. We ended up singing for an hour and a half, because what happened was, we sang really badly for about half hour.
No, you didn't.
Well, what was funny is if you listen to the tape musically, it's like the worst thing ever. But what happened is in the middle of the concert, all of a sudden, we were singing MeherBaba's Love, the whole place, a lot of you were here, and everybody starts crying. And then we were just so moved that we stopped. And we thought Bob would walk into the room. And after that, it was as though Bob had never been sick in his life. He just sang like nothing was wrong, and he played guitar great, and I can never forget that. And it is on tape, so that was my best memory.
Raphael Rudd is a pianist, and I just want to say that we're happy you are here to share your Sahavas.
Thank you. I really don't know what to say about past Sahavas, as I was invited once before, in which I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole fun and games and the performance, but what I really enjoyed that I like to work with is the internal transformation that occurs with myself first while I'm performing, at a function or event like this, and hopefully how that then transpires out into the entire audience, because it's all under the effect, and that's hopefully what Bhau's will and his work is all about, and doing to inspire all of us. And I think that events like these are extremely important in doing so, because then we can take what we get and we can go back out there and spread it to everybody else, which is what I hope is achieved. And I have to say, other than that, how I got here was, I would say fundamentally through Adele also. Talking to her on the phone. We've had our own private talks about many subjects. And in the course of that, we talked about how lovely it would have me come out here. And since Bhau passed away, Bhau was really my closest friend, male friend, and Jane, my closest female friend. I think he's still there. We haven't gotten any fights yet this trip. But it was fortunate that when we then came out here together, the year after Bhau and Jane came, that we got to perform a lot of Bhau's music, which meant a lot to me as well, a tribute to him and a homage to his passing, because he was probably, I would say, the greatest, for the Bhau world, the greatest singer-songwriter who ever lived. And he's just amazing, his lyrics and his melodies, how he constructed them and what they portrayed, and how he portrayed them. What Jane and I hopefully continue to do is to have that continue and spread that word of his love for Bhau, which is, of course, an extension of all of our love for Bhau. So I think I'm going to stop there and say, other than that, I'm just very grateful in the condition that I'm in to be here. I've had an accident last year, and I'm here, and I'm ready to do a bang-up show tomorrow night with Jane.
Adele, what year do you want to start with? You have lots of Sahavas stories from many LA Sahavases, so is there anything in particular that stands out for you?
Excuse me. I have some hearing loss. As a result, I didn't hear the last sentence of Lois. What did you say, Lois?
Is there anything in particular that stands out for you from your previous LA Sahavases? Something, a memory that you have of something special? If someone could repeat it to Adele.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I just want to say that the Sahavas, like everything else, is this give and take of love, isn't it? And so what's very special is that it grows too. Bhau rewards that kind of faithfulness, and the fact that you undertake to do something for others. What does my sweater say?
Happy is blind to making other people happy.
That's what you try to do, right? You don't always achieve it, but in fact, if you just happen to make them unhappy, that's in the karma too, isn't it? But I think that I really feel that first of all, the Sahavas, there's many aspects to it that I have benefited from. And certainly it's working with the committee. I think we have some very outstanding people that have used whatever skills beloved Baba has given them for others to bring about the best kind of Sahavas they can. And I would say that in working with them, I have benefited myself so very much That's been one aspect of the Sahavas. The other aspect is all of you. I mentioned in my talk earlier that Baba asked us not to just grieve over the external loss. And it is true, I knew Baba when he was in the body. And it is true that when Baba dropped the body, eventually, slowly, I began to feel Baba more intensely than when he was in his body. That's really true. And that's what he did. It's, the Holy Ghost and all that. He dispersed his power remains with us, his love, his knowledge, and all that he had, that he represents, essentially, love personified, is dispersed and distributed more effectively through this inner connection. And this is what he comes to bring about, this awareness that we are all one. You and I are not we but one. But of course, when I say it, of course, it's merely just parrot talking. But Baba did say that. And the effect of it has resonated. So, beloved Baba, help us all to love you more and more and more and more and still yet more till we become worthy of union. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Kashouty, as Jack said, was our guest at our first Sahavas. Renee Shaw also was a guest. And Henry, you've been here, is this your third or fourth Sahavas? Yeah, okay. They all sort of merged together. You share with us.
The way I think of all of activities connected with MeherBaba is consistently what I try to express, and that is, let's put it this way. In 1962, when I was in India, one of the statements that Baba made was to me a statement that had great importance, but I needed to plumb the depths with my own effort in order to make it more and more reality. He said, "You all have been children in my love. You must go home and find me where I really exist. I exist in the heart of my lover." And everybody needs relief from the many pressures of living in the gross world. And Baba's reality is that you can actually begin to become increasingly free by realizing the presence of a reality that is totally intangible. So that is my constant effort, and the effort is made because I need to make the effort. Because what he has represented to me and to each of you, to some degree, is the answer. The answer to what is there in life that is so worthwhile, notwithstanding what kind of life we're asked to live, what kind of problems and difficulties we're asked to confront. We actually have the real hope of becoming increasingly free, happy. And with that freedom and happiness coming from that real hope, then problems become less of a problem. Problems are always a problem until we have, as a reality, the presence of the one who is the source of everything. Because that reality is our own reality. So I try to say the same thing each time. When I come to these places, I spend a great deal of time before coming to try to experience myself what I feel I should say that would be worthwhile hearing.
The first Sahavas, there's only one thing that I seem to remember, and that was I gave a talk, and I thought that I said everything that I understood and that I felt had meaning and worthwhileness to myself, and consequently, since I feel I'm the same as everyone else, had a meaning for everyone else in terms of being able to live an increasingly happy life. A life that doesn't depend on results all the time. Well, I gave my talk and I felt I did a good job. And then they told me I had to talk again that night. And I was depressed. I said, there's nothing else I can say. What do you want to keep hearing? You heard the main ingredients for doing the work. Now that we are all fortunate enough to know the Creator Himself. Well, I went back to my room and I looked through material. I picked up the discourses and I went through the several discourses on the nature of the ego and its termination. And after reading that, I got really depressed. I said, there isn't anything that anyone can ever say. And what I was doing, and I was really trying to come up with something. And the thing about it is, since Baba is in all of us, if we keep trying, we do come up with something. And what I really came up with was that there was nothing that we can do except to realize that there is nothing that we can do. And then it becomes meaningful to surrender to Baba. And what does that mean? Well, in order to surrender to Baba, you have to think about Him. You have to remember Him. Why is that an important thing to do? Well, you have to put Him first. Well, what is that? Putting Him first is to not let any single thing that is happening, that you're confronted with, externally, objectively, in the form of an occurrence. When that occurs, and the burden is on you, the pressure is on you, you must then struggle to remember Baba, to try to build up some incentive to put Him first, which means not to react to it, or to try not to react to it. And that has to happen every moment of every day. And the benefit that comes from that is a result, but the result is you begin to find the relief. Now, you're doing the best you can. Baba wants us, as I understand Him, He wants us to confront all of our problems and difficulties and do our best to resolve them. But when you begin to remember Baba, you don't think about the results, or at least you know that the results are always for the ego, which means they're always temporary, which means they'll never satisfy you, which means they're not creative, so you don't have any freedom from it. So in reading the discourses on the nature of the ego and its termination, it made it crystal clear there is no solution except to begin to find the reality that you really are through the guidance of the God-man, who in fact is the God-man. And there can never possibly be any better guide. So if we don't get anything out of what we're reading from Him, we're not doing it enough. Reading about Him is simply a direction. The doing is the trying to not let every single negative thought that comes on the explicit stage of our consciousness control our consciousness. Our consciousness must be controlled by remembering Baba, which means to try to avoid being negative. If you see a nasty person, to try to avoid not reacting to what you maybe legitimately feel is a condemnation of the way that person acts. So every single negative thought, mostly what happens out there is not too bad. Especially if we guide ourselves pretty well. What is more difficult is for every negative thought in the mind, and that's all the mind is composed of, unless you happen to be a genius and you're focusing with such concentration on work that your ego hasn't got a chance to be worried. You're interested. For For every negative thought that's on the stage of consciousness, there are 1,000 waiting off stage to come on stage. There is only one antidote that I've ever found, and that is to remember Baba. See, the way I look at it, it's my opinion that all of us here, if you have genuine conviction that Meher Baba is who he says he is, there is no other reason for living except to do something about that. And what I have found in my own experience that works is to constantly find better ways to remember him. Because if you find ways to remember him more and more, you will try to obey him more and more. And obedience simply means not to react to anything in life. Do the best you can. And what happens, then you begin to feel increasingly free. I am convinced that we are already there. If our conscious mind has been riveted as a result of the growth of consciousness from the very beginning on the gross world, it is riveted there, and our receiving set is a very vulnerable physical body, then we are in great difficulty, but we have complete consciousness. And in that consciousness has come the God-man, and we actually believe him when he says, I am God. If that is the case, that's got to be the one single ideal and goal of our existence. And the delight of it is, when we begin to feel even the slightest presence of Baba, we become more cheerful, we become lighthearted, we put up with anything more and more. Isn't that a magnificent goal? You don't have to have this job, or that job, or the other job. You don't have to have this thing or that thing, because your happiness is not dependent upon anything. You are plumbing the depths where the avatar himself has conscious existence in our heart. So our work is to get out from the prison of our mind. The mind it controls consciousness. And the only antidote to that is the God-man, but you have to remember him. So remembering him may sound like a mechanical thing, but it's not, because you are already there, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So what I'm trying to say is, we are so fortunate, and the real mystery is to plumb the depths to find increasingly how far more fortunate we are than the greatest imagination can ever talk about. It has to be experienced. We are beginning to experience it. Be lighthearted, play, but everything that you can do to constantly remember your own reality, which in fact is the God-man, is the greatest thing in creation. The vastness of creation. The vastness of creation. This is the kind of thinking that helps me, and I've learned it from Baba. The vastness of creation is nothing more than that vastness which was necessary to produce finally that tininess that each one of us is. Because alone in that tininess is the experience of that reality which is our birthright and which brings us increasing degrees of infinite bliss. We're on the direct road, but we must do everything that we can to remember it silently within. We don't make a display of it. Accept the display of not reacting, accept the display of having a good reason to be cheerful, accepting the display of not being confounded by every problem and difficulty. And then we will become creative, and we can put up with each other increasingly in a nice way.
And that was just his first Sahavas.
Leatrice Johnston has had the opportunity to be here with her family. Leatrice?
Thank you, Lois. Yes, I have been here with my family, and that is one of my fondest memories of being here with my parents, Jean and Darwin Shaw, my sister Renee, and for us to have the opportunity to share with you those precious times with Baba, brings them alive, those times, it brings Baba alive in us, and it is our greatest pleasure to share that love and to share Baba with you, and to see that love in your eyes. And it reminds me of the Sahavas we had with Baba, in which Baba really wanted us to practice keeping him as our constant companion. And that was and is the Sahavas. And that's why we are gathered together to share in Baba's love and his companionship. And I remember in Baba's Sahavas that we loved Baba so much and still love Baba, but also Baba wanted us to love not only him, but to love each other. And I saw that people were seeing each other through the eyes of love. And I see that as one of the main purposes of Sahavas, that we love each other and see Baba and see his love in each other. But getting back to my parents, I always have to laugh at one of the panel discussions that my parents and I were on, and the topic came to marriage, and everyone had to make a comment. And my mother said, in a word, yield. It's been very beneficial. Oh yes. And another happy memory, of course, Meher miniatures, always so moving and delightful and touching. And you could go on and on about all the happy times and the sharing of the love feast. It is really a love feast that we all have the privilege and opportunity to be involved in. And just to, Baba gives us this food for our souls. We thirst for him, and he quenches our thirst, and that's what we're here for. But another time was, I was reminded of the Koali singing. That's dear to my heart, and when John Connor and the group sang Koali, that really was most wonderful. And I wish more people could really understand how wonderful it is. So all of the Sahavas are really a great opportunity for us to love Baba as much as we can. Thank you.
Allan Cohen was here in late 70s.
Don't ask me.
And he's racking his brain, but I'm sure has come up with something.
Well, you may be getting here to the monument section of memory. For Debbie. And I now reflect that on the flight in, I was trying to remember something. And not this. But I happen to be on the right side of the plane. You know how it is after a very long flight. You get a little bored. I found myself reading the map. That was very bad. And looking out the window, and I realized that the approach the plane was making was right down, I guess, Freeway 10. And I could clearly see the beginning of the mountains, and I said, you know, Pilgrim Pines is down there. Let's see if I can pick it out. Same, but nonetheless, as I was doing that, I saw what I thought was a sign of the Sahavas. Just as our flight was approaching in the valley, a major brush fire started in the mountains, not far from here. As far as I knew, they did it again. The Sahavas was lighting up the landscape. Flames were going up. I said, this is going to be a good Sahavas. But you know, strangely enough, a memory did come through, and Adele helped me. Adele helped me with her complaint of hearing loss, and though the content was still fuzzy, I was moderating a panel with some very distinguished Bible artists, so I can't remember who they were. Except one. And I think we were talking about something very exotic, like the role of the feminine in Pascal Kaplan or something like that. And I remember asking a question to Delia de Leon, who at the time was really the heart of MeherBaba's work in England. And I think, don't hold me to this, but it was something like I asked, well, Delia, talk a little bit about perhaps the role of Mara. And Delia went off on about a 10-minute exposition that made no sense at all, apparently. And everyone was really quite puzzled. And finally, I think she picked up the puzzlement on the rest of the panel and the audience. Delia goes, "You didn't want me to talk about marriage, didn't you?" That's as good a memory as any. You lose your mind one way or the other. I hear him, but the same phenomenon. I think there's something nice about having almost no memory. And that is because really, it's an illusion, isn't it? And the thing I love about Sahavas is that this could have been 18 years ago, as far as I'm concerned. It was now then. Seeing a lot of people here who I haven't seen for illusory years. No time has passed. They've changed their hair color, maybe, but hey. But you pick up where you were. So to me, time is very suspect. So I reject memory as a criteria. Celebrate the delight of that timeless connection that we all have in his love.
Just before this panel, I turned to Allan and I said, we're supposed to be on a panel in which we're supposed to talk about our memories of the last time we were here for Sahavas. And I said, I was here 21 years ago. I don't have a single memory of that time. He said, you didn't lie. So he just described the monotone section of this panel. And nothing that anyone else said tonight has helped me. But when I realized I still had to say something, what I did think was that even though I didn't remember anything from that Sahavas, that throughout today I've been bumping into people who I saw 21 years ago, or even longer than that, in some cases 27 or 30 years ago. And just as Allan said, the connection is there. And as I've been thinking through the day, over and over again, I've been meeting you, those of you who I've known all of those years ago. And the connection is still there. And the connection, of course, is not because we're connected other than through our love for Baba. And it's our love for Baba that brings it back into that connection, the love, the feeling, the joy of seeing one another again. And so my recollection of my last Sahavas is actually from today, which is the reconnection with everyone in Baba's love. And isn't that the title of this gathering, something like coming together?
Celebrating our love for Baba together.
Our love for Baba together. And I have been just steeped in that all day long and delighted to be here with you all.
Debbie Norden came for the first time last year to the LA Sahavas, to our delight, and we were so delighted that we asked her to come back as our choral director this year, and she's back.
Well, music seems to be a way that Baba kind of wove his web around me. Many, many years ago, I remember going to the center and trying to find out if Baba really was God. And Bob Brown had a group of people singing. He said to me, "Here, you sing this part. Meher-Baba." So that was my part, just to sing Baba's name over and over again that night. And I still didn't know if Baba was God or anything like that. But I remember going away from those 2 days on the center, just having that name singing in my heart. And ever since then, music has been the way that Baba has been drawing me closer, one of the ways. And I remember last year when I came here, how special it was to perform for you all, Stroll Down Lover's Lane, and to remember some of those beautiful songs that we have become, we've loved over the years, that are really, we know, Baba songs. But what also I remember from last year that was very special was Janet Luck's concert here. And it was just, she had just come back from India. And it was about a month before, or 6 weeks before Mani passed away. And I remember she shared a message with all of us from Mani. And she shared some songs that Mani had written. And then, of course, songs that she had written. And just to see how, even though she was so, physically challenged at the time, how strong she was internally. Like Babaji's talking about the inner strength. And I know that Janet has that, quite a bit of that. And she gave that a real boost of that to all of us through her concert also last year. It was very beautiful. I remember that. And I also remember our little Sahavas singer concert on Sunday morning where, we sounded great. And there were so many of us just singing Baba's name and, again, awakening just by that simplicity, whether we hear a lot of words and sometimes words really do come in and help us, or other times we just sing Baba's name, and that awakens something. Or, like Pascal was saying, you just look in someone's eyes, and like Leatrice was saying, we reconnect that way. So Sahavas just means to me remembering Baba in any way that we can. And I'm happy to be here too.
Janet and Erwin Luck were here last year, of course, as Debbie said, and were invited back this year. And Janet isn't well, so our prayers go out to her. And, this is, Baba said if 5 or more are gathered in his name, he's here. So, it should get a lot of Baba's energy from this gathering. Anyway, Edward was nice enough to come to stand in with Luck family. And this is his first LA Sahavas, so whatever you'd like to share this morning.
Okay.
It's,
really neat to be here. And so far, well, actually, my brother was supposed to be coming here, and it turned out that his wife Janet is not well, so he was not able to come. And I had no thoughts actually at all of coming to LA Sahavas. However, I did have an inspiration, and I decided about a week ago that it'd really be nice to come here. Something really exciting, an adventure, to meet you all, to connect. And I've met a number of you at other Sahavases and places like that, or in India. And so for me, to be here is like something really special, because each and every one of you are special. There was a point, I guess I could share that also while I'm here. I am here. Speaking of the specialness of everyone, which is my personal experience of each and everyone here, and how Baba had at one point communicated that to my brother and I and other people when we were with him. And he spoke of you all. And the way he did that, he said there are many that are unable to be here with me. And just because they are not here as you all are, doesn't mean that they're not a lot closer to me than you all who are here with me physically. And when you communicate to my lovers that were unable to be here at this time, convey my message to them. And you are, so to speak, for them, people that he was referring to my brother and I and other people that were there with him. So Baba's love is obviously with you all, and you were spoken of by him. And for me, to continue on a little bit, I guess that has a lot to do with why I'm here, to share that love. You might say to celebrate that love. That's what it's all about. To really connect, see here, the sharing and the caring and the love. And then go for it.
What was that? Oh, people have questions. I guess we'll hang around a while. Fred, did you have a question?
No, I'm just asking for us.
Does anybody have a question? So many. I remember, Allan is my Baba connection, so I'm always very thrilled when I have the opportunity to be anywhere with him. But years ago, they had the planets were painted on the parking lot, and I remember we were standing in Saturn talking. That's one of the memories I have. Anyway, but I have a lot of memories, but we could talk later about my memories. We'll talk at our 25th anniversary. This is our 23rd. Anyway, so does anybody else have any questions?
For those that were with
I'm wondering if those of you that had the great good fortune of being in Baba's physical presence at Sahavas could share just a sense, favorite memory, flavor of that experience with those of us that are having a different kind of Sahavas with him over these years.
Leatrice?
Yes.
And this will be the only question we'll take tonight, and we'll continue tomorrow and ask more questions.
In 1956 was when we had what Baba called our Sahavas, and also in 1958, both at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And he saw many people, had interviews in his cabin, and just hung out with us, you might say. He was around, he would see this group and that group of people, so that the rest of us were not being seen by him, but we could stand and watch, from a distance when he was having special times with other people. But then he would spend a lot of time in a lagoon cabin for part of the day, and the rest of us were hanging out outside. And I felt that I was in communication and communion with him, even though I couldn't see him. And then he would call all of us in one by one. We'd queue up and go in. And I found that there really isn't any difference. Whether I saw, I mean, yes, in a way, there is a difference whether I see him or not. But I felt him as much when I was standing outside not seeing him. And I think that was the point he was trying to get across. That we feel him inside, not where we see him.
And thank you, everyone. We look forward to hearing from all of you throughout the weekend. J. Bother.